With the overly massive and huge success of the original film, of course it was natural that a sequel was greenlit. So in 1981, Michael Myers' reign of terror continued in Halloween 2. What's up everybody, and welcome back to my Halloween film series review. Thanks so much guys for clicking this, I really do appreciate it. As stated before, with Halloween Ends just around the corner, I'm doing this Halloween film series review. So I'll be reviewing every single one minus the Rob Zombie ones, since I just done those for my Rob Zombie film series review. So I'll be doing every single one of the originals and up to even re-reviewing the David Gordon Green directed ones, the most recent ones, all the way up until Halloween Ends, followed by a ranking minus the Rob Zombie films. That'll be saved for that review series, so stay tuned for that as well. And again, about the Rob Zombie film series review, that one will get done too, so don't worry. And if you have not checked it out yet, my first original review for the first Halloween is down below in the description, so check that out when you can. So Halloween 2 continues the story of Michael Myers' bloody rampage as he sets his sights on a hospital where a traumatized Laurie Strode is rushed to in hopes to killing her. No offense to the original film, but I always favored this one over that one. Halloween 2 had so much more going for it. It had more kills. It was a little bit more bloodier, it was a little bit more graphic. I heard it was always a fan favorite amongst most fans of this franchise, over the original anyway. I know they made a lot of movies since then, but this one seems to be like everybody's favorite, especially over the original. Now, I'm not saying that there's not a fan base for the original, because there definitely is. I mean, that's the one that started it all. But this one, in my perspective anyway, it just seems like it was the better one. Again, no offense to John Carpenter, but I heard Halloween 2 was the most fan favorite out of the original. And I have to agree. It's still not perfect, but it was a step up. With that being said, let's start out with the positives as usual. I like the whole choice that they decided to pick this sequel up right from where the original left off. You get this whole reenactment scene, and it is a reenactment scene. They reacted everything, Curtis and the kids, from the scene at the end of the original, to where she tells the kids to go outside and go to the next house and get help, get the police. You can tell it was a reenactment though, because the way Curtis's lines came off, it didn't quite match up from how she delivered it at the end of the original. It's not a nitpick or a negative, it's just an observation, but you get the gist. This is over a period of one whole night, the original and this one. So much so that you can very easily edit this as a one long movie. One long ass movie. And I like how sequels tend to do that. Evil Dead 2 was the same way. Minus that early scene in that film, you could do the same thing with that one as well, with the original one of that. With Halloween 2, I like that whole continuation story. So close to where you can actually edit it and just make it easy for you to edit it as one long movie. I've always been a fan of that. I just love when sequels continue that close to home. We have the scene at the end of the original, which they reenacted into this as well, where Dr. Loomis shoots Michael 6 times. He falls off the balcony. Then, after Loomis realizes he's gone, he goes out on the front porch, and that befuddled look on his face is just priceless. When he realizes that Michael is nowhere in sight, he's gone. Then he kneels down and feels the grass. And he picks his hand up and he sees blood on his fingers. And he's like, shit, here we go again. Well, that's not actually what he said, but that's what he was thinking. That whole scene right there is what starts the movie. It starts the whole tone. And you realizing this man is not human. Which he actually says later. Loomis actually says later.
I shot him 6 times. This guy, this man, he's not human.
The story isn't Shakespeare. It's just about a guy in a white mask going around killing people. That's it. That's usually what horror is anyway, slashers especially, but it's still iconic. And there's a revenge side to this. Because of everything that Laurie put Michael through at the end of the original, there's a revenge side to this. You know, after Laurie gets admitted to that hospital, Michael heard where Laurie was getting transferred to, so he decided to finish the job, and that's pretty much what this movie is. a revenge type story on Michael's point of view. And I like that whole angle about it, because she did put him through the dead ringer at the end of the original. And speaking of point of view, you get a lot more point of view shots, a lot more POV shots. You know, unlike the original, which you only get that once at the beginning of that film, you get a lot more of it in this. You know, after the beginning credits end, it pans right away from the beginning credits to what you see in Michael's vision. Him walking through the yard and the hospital hallways and down the staircases. And he even shows the camera look down as he's going down each step. It set out a very creepy vibe, and I really did appreciate that. Like I said about the original, that film was the first movie I've ever seen where a movie was filmed where you see everything from the killer's point of view. And I've always been a fan of that. Like I said, this one, it ups it up a notch with that, and you get a lot more of it. Like the original, you get a lot more of that in Halloween 2. It was just very cool seeing more of that. It was still very effective, and it just made it feel creepier. And also, speaking of, the look and feel, it was really cool. It had a definite eerie vibe. Now, unlike the original, which was made for way cheap, this one is more of a big budgeted film. It was picked up by Universal, unlike the first one, which is more independently made. This one was made for probably a little over $1 million, not by too much. Still, it really looked pretty awesome. Especially with the hospital scene, with Michael roaming the halls. You see the dark, shadowy figure of him just walking down the halls, and there's like nobody else around. And you're supposed to suspend your belief whenever it comes to this, especially in hospital scenes in horror movies. But it really worked with the dark lighting and the creepy areas that was portrayed. It was done very well. It was edited very well. It was pieced together very well. And not to mention Michael Myers, who was awesome. Dick Warlock takes over the role in this film. Takes over from Nick Castle from the original. And I gotta admit, no offense to Nick Castle from the original. I think it was great for that one. But Dick Warlock, he kind of added something to it. The way it would show him walk and his movement, especially when he was walking through the yards and through the hospital. Just his whole movement, his whole body movement, just kind of added something there. And it was definitely something out of Michael Myers I wanted to see. Dick Warlock was a regular stunt person who worked on so many other films, but he played Michael Myers in Halloween 2 pretty well. He was very smooth, he was very slick. Again, no offense to Nick Castle from the original. He was great too. But Dick Warlock, he just added an extra spice, an extra ingredient in Halloween 2. And you get great kills. Again, they up it up a notch with this one. With the first one was more leave it to your imagination. It was more of a build-up. I think the first one is definitely worth it on any note, but it definitely gets you prepared for the sequel. Because you get a lot more kills, you get a lot more, and not too much, but more blood, more gore, more carnage candy. I mean, you get this random woman in this house who's talking to her friend, and she was telling her about the murders that just happened right down the street from her. And then all of a sudden, Michael pops up from behind her and stabs her, and you can see a little blood squirt out. You didn't even see so much as a smear in the original. And one guy gets his throat slit. That was kind of graphic. And one girl gets her face buried in scalding hot water. So much to the point where you actually see the skin, the dead skin, just boil off her face. And just, that was done in such a way that it was kind of disturbing the first few times I watched this anyway. Then you get this background kill that isn't bloody, but it's effective because you see the girl washing herself off and she's just completely oblivious, and you see it in the background, Michael just choking this guy. I was like, look behind you, look behind you.
I'll turn behind you.
Then you get a needle in the eye and a needle in the head kill. They definitely up the kills up a notch in this one. Especially with Michael, he appears from behind somebody right before he kills somebody, straight from the dark room. It was just right. It was aces. And I was wanting to mention this in the original, but I didn't think of it until now. But Michael has this kind of signature move to where he's got this childlike innocence to him, to where after he kills somebody, he tilts his head like this. As much evil as this man is, he still kind of had like this childlike innocence about him. But after he kills somebody, it's like he's admiring his handiwork. Just like in the original, after he stuck that guy to the wall with the knife, he did the same thing. It wasn't a close-up shot, but he did the same thing in that. And it's just a little bit of a character to him, as blank and pale as this character is supposed to be. And he does that quite a bit throughout this film series. And I gotta mention the great Pleasence, who returns as Dr. Loomis. He delivers even more lines, more iconic lines that even kind of trumps the original, but not really, but he just adds on to it. And he just continues trying to warn everybody about the evil, and him and the sheriff continuing trying to hunt him down and just try to contain this. Nobody else could have portrayed this character. And like I said, he adds more lines to that iconic line from the original into. Once again, he didn't disappoint. It's very moving. Again, a very important character of the story. He just goes into more detail about him and Michael's relationship and all the stuff that he had to deal with this patient.
He was my patient for 15 years. It became an obsession with me until I realized that there was nothing within him, neither conscience nor reason, that wasn't even remotely human.
Again, it was just iconic.
I am talking about the real possibility that he is still out there.
Not to mention you get this great kick-ass theme. When the beginning credits start, it was so awesome. Of course, John Carpenter returns to do the music in this. He didn't direct it. He thought that directing the first one was enough. But he did return to score Halloween 2. And the theme that he chose to do for this, which is the same thing that you hear in the original, but he amped it up a notch. It was more synthesized. It was just unique. It really popped. And it had kind of a, like, to me, like a little bit of a Christmas feel to it. I know that's kind of jumping the gun there because this is a Halloween movie, but it kind of sounded a little Christmassy. But that's definitely not a bad thing. I've got this theme on CD. Same with the score, which I'll get to here in a minute. But I've got this theme on CD, and I full blast it every chance I get. It's kick-ass. It's really good. It's one of those rare themes, and I don't really get moved by movie themes that much. But this one moves me. It definitely does. And like I said, I turn it on full blast every chance I get when I'm in the car, especially around Halloween time, which that's coming up. So, yeah, get ready, ears. It's just a very cool theme, and it's just, like, again, it's another reason why this movie kind of triumphs over the original. And you get a terrific score. Now, in order for me to talk about the score, I've got to talk about the chase scene at the end. Right when Laurie was coming out of her room, this nurse was looking for her. And when she turns around and the nurse says, "Wait, Laurie," and then Michael appears behind the nurse, stabs her in the back, picks her up, and she falls. And then the chase begins and you get that awesome score. It's one of those scores that really makes this movie feel real gloomy, but in a good way. Again, it's like the same that they have in the original, but he just amplifies it. He adds more to it that makes it even better. And again, this is another one that I have on CD that I just turn on full blast. Again, scores for movies that really move me as much. And this definitely does every time. Almost to the point where it makes me tear up a little. And that's saying a lot. And this is the first of the Halloween films of the original where they play off the idea that Michael and Laurie is actually related. Brother and sister. And I never really had a problem with that. Not that I'm saying that I hate the new ones for them dumping that whole storyline, plot line about the brother and sister relationship between Laurie and Michael. I'm not saying that I don't like the new ones because of the fact that they dumped that whole scenario. But I do believe that starting in the original Halloween 2, it does give the movie a little bit of a boost. A little bit of a reason as to why Michael is coming after this woman, this girl. Why he's stalking her. Why he's preceding her. And it just gave him a little bit of a motivational edge. And I know Michael is supposed to be blank, pale, and emotionless. I get it. But I never really had a problem with the storyline of them two being brother and sister. But again, that's not going to be a jab at the most recent Halloween releases. If anything, after I watch those again, I'll probably have my own reasons why I like that as well. Why I like the fact that they dumped the whole brother-sister relationship. I'm just saying that it worked for the original concept that was provided for the original Halloween 2. Plus you have the whole climactic scene in that room where Dr. Loomis and Laurie gets trapped with Michael. Well, Dr. Loomis hands Laurie the gun, and she shoots Michael right in the eyes, both eyes. And you see the blood dripping from his mask. And I thought that was pretty cool. Then you have Loomis and Laurie trying to distract Michael. And because he's blind, he keeps on swinging that knife around and stuff. And he's like, I'm going to get you if it's the last thing I do. Before Laurie finally escapes. And Dr. Loomis is like, it's time, Michael. And then he takes a lighter, lights it up. Boom. You get this whole big explosion right before you see Michael walk out in flames. I thought that was pretty iconic before he finally falls down. And there's your movie. And again, I thought that was a pretty clever, ending. A pretty cool climax. Now that that's all said and done, let's dive into the mix. Jamie Lee Curtis, Laurie Strode. I was kind of torn on how they handled her character in this. Now, I understand she's just been through a traumatic experience, but I just feel like her character was a little dumbed down from the original. Other than that chase scene at the end, she still shined. She still had her moments. But other than that chase scene, I just felt like her character was a little watered down. Compared to the first one, it definitely didn't really do Jamie Lee Curtis justice. It didn't really do that character justice for me anyway. But again, not a full problem. She still had her moments. But I just felt like compared to the original, her character was just dumbed down. Just a tad in Halloween 2. She wasn't fighting back much, using weapons on Michael and putting him through the ringer as much as she did in the first. But again, she had her moments. She didn't frustrate me, at least. And now let's get into the negatives. What is up with that pig sticker that Michael was using? I mean, where was the butcher knife? Where was the knife that he even picked up at the beginning of this film to kill that girl? I mean, he didn't even keep that. They decided to give him this little teeny-weeny, itsy-bitsy scalpel type thing. I mean, that's a little tiny knife that's the size of my finger. I mean, what the hell was up with that? Seriously. I mean, really? I never got on board with that. I have no idea why the filmmakers decided to dumb down Michael's weapon of choice. To me, that just took away a little bit of the iconic role that this man had. Especially from the original with that big butcher knife. He could have just kept the butcher knife from the original. Or, like I said, the knife that he picked up at the beginning of this movie, he couldn't even do that. They decided to give them this little 4-inch knife. Whenever I saw him, it's like, okay, is that the best you got? Really? It could have worked with any other knife. They just chose to go with that little weenie. There must have been some plausible reason for this decision, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't really change the way I feel. It is what it is. Plus, we get another Friday the 13th Part 2 scenario. You remember how the Paul character in that they never confirmed whether he died or not? Well, the same thing goes to this Jimmy character, who was one of the paramedics that was caring for Laura, that was deeply concerned. It shows him falling on a floor of blood, and he just knocks himself out. But then it shows him later on, after that famous chase scene between Laurie and Michael, to where he's starting up the car, and then he just passes out. That's the last you see of him. Now, in the extended cut, you do see that he did survive. It shows him in the ambulance being taken with Laurie. So, I guess if you watch that version, that made more sense, but it's not the one we got, so... But it is available. It's just weird stuff like that happens in movies sometimes, like I just referred to in the Friday the 13th Part 2 about that whole Paul character at the end of that film. So much so to where you actually have to turn to interviews from writers and producers. Now, I already heard from the producer of Friday Part 2 that confirmed that ending, but I don't think I heard anything about this ending. Like I said, the extended cut actually does clear that up, but that's not the one most of us got. It's just little nitpicks like that. I know it is a nitpick like that that just bugs me every now and then, but I review, deal with it. Despite that, Halloween 2 was still a little bit of an improvement over the original. Does it mean that I hate the original? Hell no, of course not. But there are things in this sequel definitely worth loving because it is a happy accident. So, Halloween 2, the original Halloween 2, what was your thoughts on it? Were you a fan? Do you think that this was a little bit of an improvement over the original, or do you prefer the original over this one? Leave your comments down below and give me your thoughts. Thank you so much once again, guys, for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. Like, subscribe, comment, and share, the big 4. And make sure to click that bell icon so you don't miss a thing. And I will see you on the next one. Peace.